And these 8 figures of Piedmontese, or 7 figures of Piedmontese Grenadiers, I'm going to fire over there. It would be a volley of 3 and a volley of 4. 90, it's going to be really low percentiles. They missed. And the French are going to fire back. They rolled an 11, but this time they're going to fire over here against this group of Grenadiers, because when you fire from this direction, there's no wall effect, so they're not going to get the benefit of the wall. So it's going to be a total of 7 or 8 figures originally, because fire is considered simultaneous in the mutual artillery and mutual infantry phase, but it is disordered. They're going to kill 1, so I'm going to roll odd this unit, even that unit. Looks like they killed another one out of this little group here, which means there's a morale check. Cocked die. They rolled a 6. Well, they started with an 8. They lost 2 figures, which is a 6. General's going to give them back 1, which is a 7. But they've lost half the unit now, which is another -2, which is going to make them a 5. The disorder, they're already disordered. This unit's going to rout up into the upper bailey. Notice I didn't give him any terrain benefit here, which normally would have had a +2 for morale, because the fire was coming from here, and I consider that to be open field type firing between the yellow and the blue zone, so I didn't give him an actual terrain benefit, shall we say. If it came from an exterior wall, it would have certainly been given to him. So, as you can see, I've redeployed Del Carretto and his Grenadiers sort of more centralized into the blue zone. One last thing I have to do at this point in time, when these Piedmontese Grenadiers are routed, I have to check for this unit and this unit for the state of the rout. The reason why, there's 2 figures of Grenadiers, there's 4 and 4 here. They're at least half the size of these testing units, so therefore there'll be quick morale checks. So here we've got an 8, leadership is a 9, and they get the wall benefit because they're inside the walls, so it's going to be, they can't fail. Freikorps start with a 6, get 2 for the wall, it's an 8, plus the leadership is a 9. So they pass morale. We're now starting the second turn. First phase up, MFP phase, which we basically go through. Sardinian charge and rally, so done. Then comes the Sardinian rally. In this particular case, we have the disordered battalion or unit here, which cannot rally up because it's in the minimum fire zone of an adjacent French unit within 2 inches, and we're fighting between the blue and the yellow open zone in the lower bailey. But up here in the upper red zone, this little 2-figure group of Grenadiers can try and rally. They rolled a 2, they're going to rally. They start with an 8, lost 2 figures, is a 6, down half strength, is a 4, get 2 back for the walls, which makes them a 6. As long as they roll a 6 or less, they rallied up. But they will rally to a morale disordered state. And that ends the Sardinian rally phase. Next is the French movement phase. I'm going to bring this column up, I'm going to try and assault. And we'll bring up this other Leger battalion reserve, try the same thing, keep 2 inches apart. And that concludes the French movement phase. Well, not quite. I'm going to bring this disordered guy who's back here in the foreground back. We're only going to be moving half speed, because they are in a state of morale disorder at this point. And the routers aren't moved at all. They are only moved in the rally phase. French movement's done. It's now time to move command phase or attach commanders. Del Carretto is going to be attached to the disordered Grenadiers, and the French general is going to be hunkering down in the other area. With that done, it now comes the shock phase. This is the shock phase for the Sardinians. They're going to hold still right now. I'm going to see if they can wait this out, see if they can beat off these next 2 assaults. So with that being said, we are going to the mutual artillery fire phase. French cannons blocked, so there's no fire. Mutual infantry fire phase. There's going to be a couple of shots coming from the French Leger. They're not going to do anything against those fortifications. The Freikorps firing down into the lower bailey didn't cause a loss. And in this case, the disordered Grenadiers attached with an 87 didn't cause a loss either. When you're firing disordered, it's pretty low percentage firing. With that being completed, we completed the first half of the second turn. We're now going on to the Sardinian half of the turn. That being said, first thing up, MFP phase is done. There's no French charging cavalry, so we'll pass that. It's now the French rally phase. So the units that are in morale disorder are going to rally up if they're not in a minimum fire zone. They're certainly not here. We got a router over here that needs to route check. He rolled a 6. He started with 6. He's lost a figure, it makes him a 5. He did not rally, so they're going to keep running for another move. You get 2 chances to rally in our game. If you fail on the second attempt, you're removed from the table entirely. Up at the top we have the French Leger. They rolled a 7, same thing. They're not going to stop. They started with a 7, lost 3 figures. It takes them down to a 4, so I need to roll a 4 or less, even with the modification of the officer view was in 9 inches. So that concludes the French rally phase. It's now the Sardinian movement phase. We're going to hold pat. Actually, we're going to bring these disordered grenadiers down into the lower bailey here. We're going to add to the defense. Get more men in there, shall we say. With that being done, and by the way, they all are considered to be all one big unit now. It's like in a building type situation. So there's actually effectively 6 figures of defending grenadiers. Okay, now we're coming up to the French shock phase. First is the command phase. Del Caloretto is already attached. The French general is holding strong with his other battalion. So we're going to go straight to the shock phase. We have to choose which of these 2 columns are going to do the first assault. And it's going to be this French Leger. First we have to roll to receive, and since I've got 2 units here, I have to roll for both units to receive, because they're both in the blue zone. First our disordered guys, which are they rolled a 7. Not good. They started with a 6. Started with an 8. Lost 2 figures as a 6. Half the strength of the unit takes them down to a 4. They're going to get 2 back for the wall, so it makes them to a 6, and Del Caloretto being in the 9 inches is going to make them a 7. That's exactly what they need. They just held. As for the other battalion, they haven't lost anything, so they're going to hold for sure, other than the fact if I roll a 1 or a 0. They rolled a 9. They still held. Now comes to fire. We've got a 2-figure group firing out of the blue zone. Now even though they're over here, they can still affect somebody over here because they're considered to be in this whole zone. Alright, firing the 2 figures, disordered. 74 is certainly not going to do it. We're still like a 10% or less. We've got 4 figures disordered. Remember, this is doubled fire. So double fire is 19 doubled is 38. I rolled a 36. They chipped 1 off of this battalion coming in. Which promptly causes the French to take a morale check for the loss. They rolled a 7. Started as a 7. General makes 1 for an 8. And they lost the figures back to 7. So they passed. Now we got to do the shock combat differential. We've got 6 figures to 7, so it's going to be 100% assault. They're both disordered, so whoever is the best defender is what's going to be the factor for each side. It's going to be this intact unit. So they start with an 8. Del Caloretto is directly attached as a 9. Wall gives them 3. That's a 12. They're elite, which makes them a 13, but they're morale disordered, which brings them back to an 11. The French started with a 7, they've lost a figure, is a 6. So it's a 6 to an 11, or minus 5. On the 100% chart. Minus 5 differential on 100% chart. Cock die. They roll a 4, which is a disorder retire for the attacker. Left hand column on the shock table is the attacker, right hand side is the defender. So they just threw them back, disorder retire, no additional losses or anything of that nature. But they are placed in morale disorder. This assault, they've already held, so they're going to do firing again. So this is going to be down a 3rd disordered fire. The little 2-figure, really low percentage, nothing. The bigger unit, 40, is not going to do it because no longer is it 38%, it's 38 down to 2/3 effectiveness or down a 3rd. So we go straight to shock. Well, the French are a 6, they've lost nobody, so they're a straight 6 coming in. The best defender is this unit over here again, so they're 8, disordered is a 6, 1 for Caloretto is a 7, and the wall gives them 3, which is a 10. So it's a 10 to a 6, so it's a minus 4 on the 100% chart again. 2, disorder retire again for the French. The scenario is designed, just so as you know, to make it a hard time for the French to get in, because historically they never did. And we show the morale disorder by turning around a figure.